Hi everyone, it's Robin and welcome back to Happy at Home. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how I made this hand-painted wreath for my home decor. I think it turned out fabulous and it was super easy to make, so let's go ahead and get started. To get started, I cut a 1-inch thick pine board into a 7-inch square. Next, I used a miter saw to cut 4 pieces of lath strips to size which will form the frame. Lath strips come in a great big bundle from the home improvement store. They are rough cut, so they have a great texture. Then, taking some mid-wax wood finish in the color cherry and a foam brush, I gave the 7-inch square a coat of stain. With a soft cloth, I removed any excess stain. And then for good measure, I added another coat of the stain, leaving it on to sit just a little longer than the first time I did. And then using the same cloth, I wiped off the excess. And then I moved on to staining all 4 frame pieces in the same manner, wiping on the stain and then wiping off the excess. When I was all done, I had 4 trim pieces and 1 7-inch board, which I let sit overnight before moving on to the next step. Since I don't have a pattern to share, instead I will quickly share with you how I made mine using my very basic drawing skills. I started with a basic circle, and to that I added some flowers. To make the flowers, I started by drawing a trio of hearts connected at the points. Then I added petals between the hearts, and then finally a few detail lines completed the pansy-like flower. For the leaves, I first drew a slightly arching stem. Starting in the middle of the stem, I drew a half of a teardrop shape on one side and then repeated on the other side. Like I said, a very basic drawing. After I had my pattern, I planned on transferring it the old school way by scribbling on the backside with a pencil. After placing the pattern where I wanted it, I simply traced the lines with a pencil. I'm sure you all have seen this method before. It is super easy to do, super cheap, and very effective. Make sure to take a peek every now and then to make sure your pattern is transferring nicely to the wood below. With this stain, I found it very hard to see the lines, so I needed to press a little harder than I normally would have liked to. You can always touch up a few areas like I did here if you need to. Then it was on to the painting. For the first flower, I picked a pale blue color by Folk Art called Bluebell for the base. For the detail work, I will mix it with a Craft Smart's Bright Blue. Using the first blue color, I filled in the design with the paint using a small paintbrush. Then I mixed the 2 colors together to create a color that would blend well with, but stand out slightly from the base color. Then using a very fine tipped paintbrush, I added the detail lines to the flower. The next step was to add the polka dots to the top of my wreath. I did this by using a small paintbrush and the first paint color Bluebell by Folk Art. For the remaining 2 flowers, I used Folk Art's Vintage Tea Rose for the base color, and to mix with it for the detail color, I am using Apple Barrel's Bright Magenta. Just like with the other flower, I first added the base color using a very small paintbrush. I then mixed together a custom color with the 2 pink shades of paint and then added the details to the flower with a small fine-tipped paintbrush. It's not showing up on camera very well, but there is a subtle difference between the 2 shades, which is what I wanted. And then it was time to fill in the leaves. I'm using the Martha Stewart's craft paint in the color Scottish Highlands. Using a fine tip paint brush, I first added the leaves around the flowers. I then moved on to one side of the wreath, working my way up the design until I had the whole thing filled in. I repeated the process on the other side of the wreath. For the final step, I'm using Martha Stewart's craft paint in the color Couscous. Using a fine-tipped paintbrush, I added a trio of dots to act as berries on the branches I previously added while painting on the leaves. Last minute, I decided to change out the blue polka dots with some yellow ones instead so that they would stand out a little better. I really like how the change turned out. To finish off the project, I attached the frame pieces to each side using a hammer and finish nails. Once I had the frame on, I felt like the flowers needed a little bit more detail, so using some basic craft paint in the color black, I added a few dots to the middle of the flowers, and I think it gave it a nice finishing touch. I'm now using it in my living room on a small side table, and I think it helps to create a very cute spring arrangement. I debated about adding some sort of wordage in the middle, something like "Hello Spring," but in the end I was enjoying the streamlined look of it, so I left it blank, and I am loving how it turned out. I hope you enjoyed today's video and that it gave you some inspiration for spring. Check out the description box for some of the links to the paint and supplies that I used in today's video. And as always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me, and I'll see you again soon. Bye now.